Well, hey everybody, happy Friday. I am Nick Slavic. I'm the proprietor of the Nick Slavic Painting and Restoration Company. I'm also the host of this show, Ask a Painter Live. It's a weekly live Facebook show where I use my over 2 decades of experience as a craftsperson and a business owner to answer any of your questions. Today, very straightforward show, but a very important show, the fifth wall, the ceiling. And I'm going to show you the basics. The tools, the coatings, the techniques. We got a sprayer here, we got rollers, we got all this other stuff going, and I'm going to show you kind of the 4 basic scenarios, give or take, that I run into in my painting business when it comes time to ceilings. And then as always, I'll stay on as long as you guys want to with any of your questions. We can talk about nerdy stuff like job costing and spreadsheets, or we can go deep into coating science. So Eduardo, Parker, Aaron, how's it going, guys? So number 1, PCA. Painting Contractors Association. They are known for their live in-person events throughout the year. They have many, they have forums, they have chapters, they have councils, and of course the big expo. Now, in a COVID world, we can't necessarily do that stuff. So we're waiting for kind of the world to open back up to do that, and we don't want to lose that sort of in-touch sort of thing. So there's a Facebook group, the Paint Ed Facebook group, where you can connect with all your people. And of course, you have me as a resource as well. So let's not disconnect. Let's not stray from the togetherness and the camaraderie that we've built over the bunch of years here. So the PCA, you guys know what I have to say about the PCA. I didn't talk to other painters. I used to think painters were all my enemies. I've been in this craft for 28 years now, and for probably 23 of those, I used to think painters were enemies until other painters started reaching out to me because I was a loudmouth on social media, and that sort of opened me up. I got involved with the PCA. Somebody dragged me in. Once I got in, I looked around, and there were a whole bunch of people doing this way better than I was, and they came around, put their arms around me, and basically said, listen, we've been there. Here's what you need to know. Whatever you need of me, here's the books, here's the tools, here's the spreadsheets, here's the things you got to watch out for, here's the things you don't care about, and just move on. David Coles, PCA, are they in Canada? Yes. Some of my favorite people in the PCA, like Dustin Zapanzik, are from Canada, Vancouver, and they are in the PCA. So PCA is a worldwide organization, and you can join from wherever you are. We have people from all over the world that join it, so I would look into that. Click on the link there, David, in this show, and you get all the resources. One of the cool things too is there are some free resources right away, like standards. Like if you're going to have a discussion with a client about what an actual flaw is, there's an actual standard for that you agree upon before the job, and then everybody's sort of held honest to that. So it's not a coincidence that I matured as a business owner and a craftsperson after I started getting involved with other painters. Those other painters were members of the PCA. I would just say, look into it. Do yourself a favor. So the fifth wall, this one. This is actually a brand new drywall room. We have some prime drywall behind us here, but I'm going to use this to sort of demonstrate, describe 4 basic scenarios that I find when painting ceilings in houses. And again, I'm a residential repaint contractor. Probably 80 to 90% of what we do is there's a house, a family lives in it, and they want the inside or the outside painted. But we do a bunch of high-end new construction, commercial work, industrial, things like that. So once in a while, we sort of run into scenarios with new drywall as well. We're just gonna treat this as a whatever. So Tony, Jim, thanks everybody. So first of all, tools. Well, maybe we go coatings first. Coatings. The theory behind ceilings. Now, I'm sort of an extremist. In my last house, my historical home, I had gold leaf, we had decorative paint, antique copper, metallic paint, decorative designs, historic stuff, all that. I like that. I like using the ceiling as an accent piece. Most people do not find that in their house. They just want flat, they want white, and they want light. The reason that is, and you can ask yourself, why do we all just take it for granted that ceilings are flat white? Well, a light, white, flat, non-reflective structure over our heads gives a feeling of loft or height or airiness and light. In a room like this, if you were to paint the entire thing the deepest navy blue or the black, it would be very hard to read a book in here without a whole bunch of additional light. When it's white, sometimes all you need is natural light, things like that. There is something called light utility. The lighter you make a room, the less additional lights you have and the less strain on your eyes. So one of the reasons is, it gives you the volume of space. The old kind of cliche is lighter paint colors, bigger space, sort of. Ceilings, it's definitely true. If you have this big imposing sort of black or blue or a deep, deep color right over your head, it does feel a little bit cozy. Some may say ominous in some ways, but the reason we do that is because it adds a little bit of loft. And the reason we go flat is because we don't want it to reflect stuff. Now, houses in my area are still built with crappy pine lumber. We put drywall over that. And in Minnesota, we go from -40 and we go to 100 degrees and humidity from stuff that'll dry your skin out to where you drip sweat inside your air-conditioned house. These houses move all over the place, and drywall moves. And in turn, you're gonna get cracks, lumps, waves, dips. If you put a semi-gloss on your ceilings, it's gonna amplify every single dip and wave. That's why we use a flat, and not only flat, dead flat. So I am morally opposed to putting sort of builder's flat or dead flat on people's walls, unless they know what they're getting into. If you have kids, pets, families, it's a disaster. It wipes off on a rag, all this other stuff. Now, nobody touches a ceiling if you're living in your house correctly. So we can use the deadest dead flat white, and that's what I like to use. So for that reason, one of my favorite coatings, my favorite ceiling paint for that matter, is Sherwin-Williams CHB, if you guys have never heard about that before. I know that most people can get it. It's a semi-regional product, but if you do ask your rep, they can track some down for you. Now, CHB is dead flat. It's got lots of filler in it. It's an insanely good coating for ceilings. It covers well, and the biggest part for me is that it minimally, well, I shouldn't even say minimally, it doesn't flash if you put it on correctly, which is a huge thing. So sometimes if you use a very high-end paint, it has a little bit of stuff in it that will end up making it flash if you brush or roll or spray, and flashing is basically just the difference. You can see a little bit of a shine difference, either where it overlaps or where it dried and it didn't. So I will say this stuff is great. Like when years and years ago, I used to hand finish all my ceilings. Now we do kind of hand finish and spray. We used to have these huge vaulted ceilings, 40, 50 feet wide. I used to hand finish that brush and roller. And even by myself, I'd be brushing and rolling and I wouldn't get flashing marks. And that is huge because you can keep repainting these ceilings over and over again. So the goal of a ceiling paint is to be flat, is to be white and bright, and if you can get away with that with one coat for your clients, it's better for them, you save their money, and it's better for you. You can be more efficient with your painting. So this is my standard setup here for hand finishing. We have, you guys know it, Purdy Elasco 2.5 inch straight cut. This is our standard, let me get a little chunk there. This is our standard interior and exterior trim brush and cutting brush. So I would say 90% of all of our interior painting is done by this brush. We cut walls, we cut ceilings. For enamel, we use another brush, a Nylox, but this is basically it. When we're doing trim on the outsides of houses and other small painting projects, we use these exterior. Phenomenal brushes. And with ceilings, the Elasco has that little bit of added reach on it, so when you're in a stairwell, you can get about another 6-8 inches this way, 6-8 inches that way. You just bought yourself a foot of cutting on an extension ladder, so that's a big thing. Cut can, just a standard cut can with some CHB in it. So we have for this one I'm just using a shallow Purdy paint pan with a disposable liner in it. We got a Purdy Colossus. In this case, we got a 1/2 inch loaded up. We got the 18-inch roller head, and we got the paint pull. So this is the standard sort of hand cutting and rolling sort of thing. When we spray, typically what we'll do is a 517. A lot of the times when we do cabinets and trim, we're in that 308, 310, 311, 312 right in there. When we do interior stuff like ceilings, this is the time where you do break out those 517s. A 517 on a cabinet or trim project is overkill. It's kind of a fire hose when it comes to that. But when you're needing to cover a lot of area, like priming drywall, painting ceilings, if you know what you're doing and you modify your hand movement, 517 is just a really good one. If you hold it about 12 to 18 inches away, you get a really good 12-inch, 18-inch fan pattern like that. And depending on the ceiling coating, you can go closer, you can go farther, you can go faster, you can go slower to fill everything in. Now, typically with hand painting ceilings, I'm going to show you two things. Hand painting ceilings, we run into two scenarios where typically right now we've made the transition over the last bunch of years to spraying, but in the case where we would hand finish a ceiling, one powder room, one bathroom, one quick bedroom where it just needs a quick coat of paint, it's not really worth it going through all the sprayer cleanup and everything to do that. So in that case, we run into two scenarios hand painting. We're going to paint the walls and we're not going to paint the walls. When we're going to paint the walls, it's pretty easy. We actually tape off the room just like we're gonna paint the walls. And then we take that one added step of basically, if we haven't covered all the furniture, completely seal it with plastic, and then seal the windows and the doors just like we do on the outside of the house when we completely mask them off. Because anybody who knows who does like textured ceilings, or even flat ceilings for that case, there's tiny little droplets of white that get everywhere. So we use that 2.5-inch commercial blue frog tape, and when we tape the baseboard, we leave it baseboard here, we leave the tape straight out perpendicular from the baseboard, and the tape sticking straight out like that actually covers that gap, that 1-inch gap in the top of the baseboard. So if your drop cloth ends up slipping out or something, you're good. Sealed up windows, sealed up doors. So then basically you can either hand brush or spray at that point. It would be either way. Like I said, the two scenarios hand finishing would be painting the walls and not painting the walls. If we're painting the walls, we go about 1 inch onto the wall itself, fill that gap really well, clean up, because usually from years of painting, there's kind of an uneven sort of surface. Paint goes up, paint goes down, there's chunks. We paint the ceiling, we'll hand cut it first, and then we'll go about 1 inch onto the wall. I always hand cut first, and when I do hand cut, it's one of these things too, where we have, can lighting and things like that. My SOP is always to do the things in the middle. We call it in the field of the room first, because when somebody starts on a corner and cuts around, a lot of time they go reach for the roller and get going, and then they forgot the stuff in the middle. So my SOP is always do the stuff in the middle. If there's only one center light, good, one center light. This room happens to have 4 can lights and a center light, so I would start with I would just go right around 4 cans, center, 4 cans. Either way, do that first, it's done. Cut, all we're looking for is about a 2 to 2.5 inch border around there, just so we can overlap with the roller, and then we roll. And when we roll, we're gonna start at one end, and I like to go one pass all the way across and just keep it going like that. So I'm gonna demonstrate that right now, and then I will show you the part where we don't paint the walls. Now the prep is a little bit different when we don't paint the walls. What I'll end up doing is coming down about 1 foot, maybe somewhere between 6 inches and 1 foot, taking the 12-foot painter's plastic and tape and kind of lightly tacking up plastic all around just in case a micro droplet doesn't hit the walls. The reason I don't tape a clean line up there and then paint and then hope that it all comes off is for 2 reasons. Number 1, you're always going to get bleed through because it just kind of sneaks behind there. Number 2, even delicate tape will always rip paint off because new construction painters don't always get all the drywall dust off before they paint, and the paint sits on top of the drywall dust. You put masking tape, even good delicate stuff, over, and you're gonna rip it off in chunks. And I've seen the area where the whole perimeter rips off, and then you have to repaint the room. And sometimes at the painter's expense, because you promised your clients that you weren't gonna affect the walls like that too. So, and also I'll be getting to all your guys' questions too. So, number 1, I'm gonna grab my ladder. All right, so scenario number 1, we're painting the walls. This is pretty easy. What I'll end up doing is cutting first, and because this is a knockdown texture, going back and forth, a lot of light little strokes to kind of fill in those things. You want really, really good coverage. No little bits of texture or anything undone. So again, big controversy in the Gathering of Minnesota Painters, if you guys aren't a member, between wipers and slappers. A slapper is somebody who takes their brush in, does one of those, maybe a little tap. And a wiper is somebody like me where I wipe one side of the brush and then take it to the wall. So again, the battle rages on between tappers and slappers. So if we're going to be painting the walls, I'll start like this, light brush strokes back and forth, go about 2.5 inches out. And you're always making sure that you're watching, like there's a little nub right here. When you drag your brush across, sometimes paint gathers there and it'll end up dripping down on the wall. So just make sure there's no sagging. And just load that corner up. Make yourself a new corner, and then I always like to give it a nice little, just to make sure we go a 1/2 inch or 1 inch onto the wall like that. So yeah, if you take a normal painting stroke on a textured ceiling, if you just kind of do one of these things, you're kind of missing, the bristles won't drag in there. The benefit of like a Pro Extra is it's stiff enough where if you kind of go like this, the bristles will kind of get in there, the flagged ends have enough paint. It'll do a good job. Now, second scenario is where we are not going to affect the wall. So I'll tilt the camera up a little bit here so you guys can see. Second scenario is we're not going to be painting the walls, and then at that point, a good brush is your friend. And you know, you can see, reposition yourself, because you've got to have an eye between you and the brush to see that. If the brush is between you and the wall, you're going to go right onto that wall. So I usually take 1/2 inch of paint, wiped, not slapped, flip it up, and at about a 45-degree angle, let those bristles get in there like this. I do a short section. Tedious, yes, but effective. And if you pick the right brush, it's going to be stiff enough to get into the stiff enough to get into the texture, but not so stiff that it doesn't conform to it. And one of the things that I always try to stress upon my apprentices is that whenever you cut, never go farther than what you can do 100%. So you can see I'm trying to hit, before I run out of paint with that brush, I always try to get that area 100%. Instead of kind of, you know, spreading it out like this, coming back, maybe doing a little here, like that, you really want to just keep it going in a nice, solid, wet edge all the way around. And I know the camera's probably not picking it up, but man, you can see the bristles just like conform. I don't know if you've ever seen those car ads, truck ads, where they got them going over boulders at a high speed and the wheels are just conforming to the terrain, but that's exactly what it looks like here. Just like that. So, it's tedious. You obviously have to charge a little more for ceilings like that, but it is effective. So, oh, Brian, I'm a slapper. Oh, that's funny. Okay, so rolling then. Typically what it will do, you know, if small room, powder room, you're gonna take a 9-inch, and at that point you can use a White Dove, Colossus, whatever. I just have Colossus, 18 inches in the shop right now, so we're gonna do that, and if we're doing multiple rooms, 18 is kind of the way to go. So load up your Colossus. And typically what we'll do is I will start in the corner in the back of the room, and I'll usually work my way out to the room. So you're working in a linear fashion like this. And I'll do one solid stripe all the way across, come back and forth, zigzagging back and forth. The goal here is to get a wet edge so you prevent any possible flashing. Now, if you use this paint, this technique, you work fast enough, you're probably not gonna see it, but it doesn't hurt. It's just a good technique. So basically, if you work quick enough, if you move back and forth, if you overlap just a little bit, you're putting enough paint on, you can keep that wet edge moving, and the goal is, when it's all dry, you get this beautiful, even finish, no flashing, no roller marks, no brush marks, just beautiful. Now, let's talk about spraying, and then we're gonna get to spraying. So let me grab my setup. All right, so typically I use anywhere between a 8 and 10 inch extension and an 18 and a 24, just depending. If you have standard size ceiling heights, you can almost get away with just the gun. But again, your arm's gonna be up and extended. It's a little easier on your body if your arm isn't all the way straight up like this. You can reach a little farther with these. If you have some vaulted ceilings too, sometimes you got to either get up on a ladder, use a bigger extension, but you know, anywhere between that 10 inch, 24 inch is usually a good kind of all around. Even if you have a longer extension, you can kind of do one of these things too. So here we have 517 loaded up here. This is the time where I really like these things. We just happen to have a Titan airless. We're running Graco tips just because that's what we have around the shop right now. And we've actually had really good techniques, or really good success with, typically we do 2 coats on ceilings. The one time that we don't treat them like walls. With walls, you would paint a coat, let it dry, paint a coat. But with ceilings, we found that with the dead flat paint, it dries really quickly, has less tendency to flash, and is very thick. It'll actually cling to itself a little better. So we've actually had a lot of success with a crosshatch pattern where we do the room one way, kind of just like you roll, but then we turn around right away and hit it again. Because usually by the time we've went to one end's already starting to dry. And because adhesion is never an issue, we've never had an adhesion problem, delamination with CHB, we basically crosshatch it, and that's a super effective way to basically that dead flat paint sticks to itself so well. You can kind of effectively do about a coat and a half versus 2 full coats. You know, you do want to be careful about that. You don't want to lay it on as thick as you can, turn around, lay it on as thick as you can. Follow the TDSs, wet mill thicknesses, but really you can put on about 3/4 to a coat and then maybe half to a 3/4 again. And if you crosshatch it like that, it's a really good technique. So I'm gonna go through some questions here and then I'm gonna actually spray this room out for you. I'm gonna throw on the PPE and I'm gonna crosshatch this thing for you. So let's see what else we got here. Thank you, Sherwin, for being a good supporter of all this stuff. I do appreciate it here. And yeah, we just got our Sherwin order in the shop here a little bit ago. David, thanks for watching from Canada. Jim Jatko, PCA is awesome. The organization and its members have helped my business immensely. Also, Jim, recipient of one of those Purdy backpacks from the Ask a Painter show a little bit ago. So I saw Jim posted a picture and I'm glad you're enjoying it, man. Tony Joseph, how's it going, man? Brian Santos, my good friend. Always good to see you watching. Daniel from Romania. Hey, how's it going, man? God, we get a whole bunch of people from all over the place here. That's awesome. Alex St. Germain, one of my high-speed young craftspeople watching as well on his day off. Tony Joseph, we use Masterhide. Yes, one of my favorite people on the planet, Zach Kenny, uses Masterhide to great effect too. So the same idea applies. There's probably 15 different products through Sherwin-Williams that you can get readily that will all do this, you know, all the way up to Eminence and things like that. And, you know, honestly, the idea is flat and light and white most of the time. So as long as you find something like that, Masterhide's been around forever. And if you can't get CHB, Masterhide. And if you can't get Masterhide, CHB, great products all around. Stevie Jones, for me, I'd say at least 98% of our clients' ceilings in the UK are white and flat matte. Yep, I would agree, man. I would agree. Lucas, Norway. Oh my God. Oh, Lucas, how's it going? We've been emailing back and forth. It's so awesome. And listen, Romania, Norway, Brazil, people, send me pictures of your job sites. It's so, like when you have something set up, the houses you do, I would love to see that stuff. It's such an interesting sort of thing. And I don't get enough of sort of data points from around the world. So send those in. I would absolutely love that stuff. Oh, Alan Richke, what paint do you use for ceilings again? Oh yeah, Sherwin, CHB, magic paint. It's one of those coatings. There's a few coatings us painters encounter in our lives that are like, this is perfect. It does exactly what it should. It's readily available. It's inexpensive. Never had a failure. Always dependable, and always performs as wanted. So yeah, that's one of them. That goes on one of our use this all the time if we can. It's just a perfect product. Right. Brian, I'm a slapper. That's so funny. Alan, what do you think about the Corner Plus rollers? I don't specifically know what those are. I'm assuming you're probably talking about something that can roll into corners as well. I don't know. I don't know how much time that's going to save us if I understand you. Brian, do you score or scrape the inside junction between the drywall and the ceiling? So yes, on typically houses within the last 20 years that haven't been painted a whole bunch, we usually find there's actually a pretty good line there typically. And most of our ceilings are still popcorn from the last 20 years. So there's actually this kind of cool little lip where you have a wall here, ceiling like this, and the popcorn actually, when they tape it off, it creates a little lip. So painter's secret, if there is any. You can kind of sneak a brush behind that popcorn and it actually makes it easier to cut a line. You still got to be good if you're going black on a white ceiling, but it is a little kind of sneaky trick. It's a little forgiving, but houses older than that, if they've been messed with and painted a lot, yeah, we will absolutely do that. Another little painter's trick here is we keep cans of Upshot. It's a shellac-based stain killer. And once in a while, when a client's bumped the ceiling, painting themselves in a room, we'll actually take that Upshot and we'll hit it a little bit just to get rid of those things. Now, I guarantee you it'll never match your ceiling paint for shine or color, but instead of repainting the whole ceiling, you can just give it a little shot like that. So, David Coles, I fire my slappers. Yeah, it's I would say the tapping your brush versus wiping your brush is probably even more controversial than taping or no taping, and lots of debate on that stuff. So you guys all know you guys know where I fall on that stuff. Scotty Frayne, can you dip left-handed? Listen, man. All right, let's see if we can capture this here. Oh, I gotta get the right side of the can up there. Oh, I got a little string of paint. That's okay. I'm not as good with my left hand. So typically what I'll do on a ladder is the can will always be on my right side on a chain hook like this, and I'll always dip and wipe with that hand, and then I'll hand it over to the left hand. My left hand is probably 90% as efficient as my right hand while painting. It's about half as efficient when dipping. So I'll always just keep my can on the right hand side and then transfer the brush over to the other hand. Let's see, DC, did you guys do the knockdown? So on this one, we use one of our subcontractors. On a job, my drywall crew actually just walked into the shop. They're cleaning out their drywall machine themselves, but they just applied knockdown yesterday on a big job. Man, there was, I can't remember how many square feet that is. There's probably about 1,600 square feet worth of knockdown that they had done, so it was a big one. Have you tried Painter's Edge? You'd have to, DC, tell me what, give me a little more information there. David Cole, use a CHB, absolutely. Evangelos, thanks for watching. Alan, how's the fallout on CHB? If you're talking about spitting and stuff like that, it's probably one of the better paints as far as that goes. It's super thick, it covers very, very well. It's not thin in the least, and we really don't have a problem. I would almost hazard a guess to say that overspray, spitting, things like that has more to do with brush and roller than it does the paint a lot of the time. So super good roller cover, and you won't have that problem there. So let's see, Anthony Brown, CHB is the go-to paint for me as well. Crosshatch, yeah. So I'll be crosshatching in just a second here. Brian, yeah, like Upshot to Mass Goose as well. Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys, so I'm going to crosshatch this room for you, kind of show you what we're doing here. We got CHB loaded up. Around the corner, I can't show you. We got this super sneaky experimental Titan sprayer. You'll hear it running, but you won't see it running. We have our 517. We got our 24-inch extension there. I'm going to take a second to just clear this room out so I have free reign right to left. Bear with me, and then I'm going to spray this room ceiling for you. Almost ready. All right, just reposition my lights here to go the long way away from the water. Respirator on, and I'm going to move this camera here. So I'm going to cover my camera up. Oh, Painter's Edge paint from Sherwin-Williams. Haven't used it. When you have CHB, it's it's hard to switch, man. I'm an experimenter, but there are a few times when you use something and it works and you just leave it. hid my phone there. Okay, let's see how much we can see here. All right, let's back up a little more. Okay. Stephen Ravencraft of Respirator does nothing with all that fascia hair. I learned the hard way. So yes, I agree. This next week, I'll actually be doing a respirator video for 3M, and I will be completely clean shaven, including a razor. But for this, if I had to choose between not using one and using one, I will use one. So I will use one. All right, here we go, folks. All right, time to reposition I'll adjust this, reposition my lights, and then I will crosshatch. Saw a comment I liked here. Steve, I always work backwards when I spray, so I'm not eating the overspray. Yes, I thought that was kind of rude to just put my back to the camera, so you saw me switch around there, so. All right, crosshatch. right, there you have it, folks. That's sort of the couple scenarios that I run into when painting ceilings. Hand cutting, either we paint the walls or not, and then spraying. The only time we really mask off the ceiling 100% and hopefully rely on tape is when we strip popcorn, retexture, and repaint on a whole house. We attempt to save the client's walls, but we all know that that's not always the case, but we will make an attempt so they don't have to paint their whole house. So yeah. Alan, let's see, what kind of light are you using? So we're using LED bar lights. Those are just ones I get off Amazon. They're 4-foot LEDs, they're super tough. I've seen people toss them in and out of cold vans, and they really last for a long time. They're really good stuff. So, all right, everybody, thank you to the PCA, the Painting Contractors Association, for being good underwriters of this. This is all free because of them and Sherwin-Williams. Thank you for Sherwin-Williams for not only making good paint like CHB, but for also being good underwriters of the show and believers in what we're trying to do to the industry, which is get the young, bright minds in here, get them into the trades, innovate, so that we can give a better product and better pricing to our clients. So, all right, everybody, thank you for watching. I'm gonna check out on family time here. You guys have a good weekend, and we'll see you next week.